So I want you to imagine moving it into a new house.
Oh, the absolute worst.
Right. You're standing there in the living room, and you just look at all those cardboard boxes, like they're stacked all the way up to the ceiling, hundreds of them.
Yeah, just looming over you.
Exactly. And instead of feeling, I don't know, excitement about this totally new chapter in your life, you just feel this crushing, suffocating weight.
Because the sheer gravity of everything you own is just staring right back at you. I mean, it's demanding your attention, your energy, your time.
Yeah, we walk around thinking our possessions belong to us. But in that moment, looking at all those boxes, it really, really feels like we belong to them.
That's so true.
I mean, they need space, they need insurance, you have to dust them. They dictate so much of our actual behavior.
It's basically the ultimate trap of the material world. We're, anchored to the floor by our own stuff, which raises a really fascinating question about what it actually means to be free.
And we are taking that exact question and exploring a deeply radical philosophy today. We're looking at a text that takes the absolute oldest spiritual advice in the world, which is letting go of material wealth, and pushes it to just a world-altering extreme.
A total extreme, yeah.
So our source for this deep dive is a translated excerpt titled, "Possess Nothing Yet Have Everything." It's written by an author named Su Feng, and it outlines the foundational values of an organization known as Lifechanyuan.
Right, and for anyone listening, we should probably clarify immediately that this is not a standard minimalist decluttering guide.
Oh, yeah.
Like, we aren't talking about tossing out sweaters that don't spark joy or organizing your kitchen cabinet.
Not even close.
Yeah.
We're going to unpack how this text attempts to unify the teachings of all the major world religions and how it applies this literal physics-like energy law to human morality.
Yeah, and eventually where it gets truly radical, how it proposes the total abolition of countries and families.
Which is wild. And all of this starts from one simple central premise, which is you can only truly have everything if you own absolutely nothing.
It's just a massive escalation of a familiar concept. To grasp how Shifeng builds this radical philosophy, we really first have to look at the historical foundation they use to make their case.
Right.
The text synthesizes the teachings of these major historical spiritual figures, basically arguing that despite massive theological differences, across centuries and continents.
Right. They all arrived at the exact same conclusion.
Exactly. The exact same economic and material conclusion.
That was the part that immediately jumped out at me.
Yeah.
The author looks at human history and finds this shocking consensus among people who disagreed on almost everything else.
Yeah, completely different worlds.
You have desert monotheism and Eastern mysticism, yet the text argues they are all pointing to the exact same exit door out of human suffering.
Yeah, and the text pulls from the heavy hitters to prove this. It starts with Jesus Christ pointing to his explicit instruction to followers not to lay up treasures on earth.
Right, because of the moths.
Exactly. The logic provided by Jesus is very mechanical. On earth, moths and rust corrupt your things, and thieves break in and steal them. You're supposed to accumulate treasures in heaven instead.
Which creates a binary choice. You can have wealth here, or you can have it there. You can't have both.
Right.
And then the text connects that directly to Shakyamuni Buddha. But the Buddhist angle isn't really about rust and thieves, is it?
No, it's about the fundamental nature of reality itself. The text highlights the teaching of developing a pure mind that doesn't abide in anything. Not form, not sound, smell, or taste.
Because it's all an illusion.
Right. The author emphasizes that in the Buddhist view, all worldly phenomena with form are literally unreal. They're just dreams and illusions.
So grasping onto a physical object is basically like trying to hold onto smoke.
Perfect way to put it. By letting go of that illusion of ownership, one can enter what the text calls the Elysium world, which is essentially this philosophy's version of an ultimate enlightened paradise.
And then the text weaves in Lao Tzu, referred to as the immortal.
Yeah.
The focus here is on the Taoist concept of taking no action, or, not contending.
Yeah, acting and helping without appropriating. Accomplishing things without laying claim to credit. The quote they use is, "He who grasps lets slip."
I love that. And finally, the author brings in the Prophet Muhammad, quoting this incredibly stern warning. If you desire the harvest like the material rewards of this life, you will get it.
You'll get exactly what you asked for.
Yeah, but by choosing that, you forfeit any share or lot in the hereafter.
It's zero sum.
So looking at all these figures lined up like this, to me it feels like this universal software patch the human operating system that completely different developers came up with independently.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
They're all coding the exact same fundamental rule, which is drop your attachments. But here's my question for you. The text says these teachings are the Tao of life, and they are not stupid at all.
Yeah.
But how does the author explain, why all these figures agree? Is there a literal mechanical reason behind it in the text? Or is this just framed as, a moral imperative to be a good person?
So that is the crucial pivot the text makes. It doesn't just rest on moral authority at all. It introduces an entirely mechanical universe.
Really?
Yeah. Answering your question basically shifts us from religious history to the text's actual physics of the cosmos. The author explains exactly why giving things up works through a concept they call Taiji thinking.
Okay, walk us through Taiji thinking.
Yeah.
How does the text define the physics here?
So Taiji thinking posits a strict mathematical cosmic rule. The sum of positive and negative energy in the universe is always zero.
Always zero.
Always. It is a system of absolute, unavoidable thermodynamic-style balance.
So it's literal cosmic accounting.
That is the best way to understand it, honestly. The text argues that if you gain in some ways in this life, you will inevitably lose in others to maintain that zero-sum law. And this applies directly to your mortal life and your afterlife. The more blessings, comforts, or, material wealth you extract and enjoy in this current world, the fewer blessings you will have in the afterlife.
Wait. That reframes worldly wealth completely. It implies that getting rich isn't a success story.
Not at all.
If you're accumulating millions of dollars, you're essentially just spending down a cosmic trust fund until you're spiritually bankrupt.
The author looks at wealthy people and says exactly that. They are simply cashing out massive merits they earned in previous lives.
So the mansion isn't a reward.
No, their current mansion or their luxury car isn't a victory. It's the rapid depletion of a past spiritual surplus.
Which means, the text must have an incredibly stark view of poverty too, right? If wealth is just cashing out past good deeds, what does Taiji thinking say about someone who works hard all their life but can barely feed their family?
Yeah, so the text applies the zero-sum logic without hesitation here. It argues that people in severe poverty are in that position primarily because they lacked previous merits.
So they came in with a zero balance.
Exactly. They don't have a cosmic savings account to draw from in this life.
That is a harsh, uncompromising way to view inequality. It completely removes systemic societal issues from the equation and places the burden entirely on this metaphysical ledger.
It does. It's very blunt. But within the logic of the text, this worldview provides a highly specific, actionable directive.
Which is?
Well, because of the zero-sum physics, if you want to become a celestial being in heaven, you must actively do the opposite of accumulating wealth. You have to engage in what the text calls formless almsgiving.
Formless almsgiving. I assume the formless part means you don't get your name on a plaque on hospital wing.
That's the core of it, yeah.
Yeah.
By giving without seeking recognition, without holding on to the ego or the form of the gift, you earn enormous blessings for the afterlife. You are depositing into that cosmic savings account rather than, withdrawing from it.
Okay, but if having wealth drains your cosmic merit, how does the text view the actual day-to-day experience of owning things right now? Because even if I believe in this universal accounting system, I still have to wake up and live in the present today.
Right.
What is the toll of possession on just a random Tuesday morning?
The toll, according to the text, is total psychological devastation.
Devastation.
Yeah. This moves us into a heavy critique of how the desire to possess fundamentally ruins our earthly experience. The text argues that whatever we try to possess in this world will ultimately vanish. Therefore, if you are running after possessions, you are literally chasing illusions and bubbles.
Chasing bubbles is an exhausting way to live. You're constantly terrified they're going to pop.
The author details that exact psychological toll. The more you possess, the more distress, troubles, crises, and disasters you invite into your daily life.
You just have more to lose.
Exactly. You can never rest peacefully because you're constantly racking your brain, trying to figure out how to maintain, protect, and grow what you have.
Which inevitably leads to terrible behavior. The text mentions lying, contending, and hurting others just to keep your bubbles from popping.
It breeds this intense culture of paranoia and greed. You hurt others and you hurt nature, causing the people around you to envy, covet, and rob.
Right, it's a vicious cycle.
And the text states very clearly that this mindset drives your life's quality further and further from heaven, pushing you closer to what it calls the animal world and hell.
So who is doing it right then? What is the alternative model in the text that we are actually supposed to be aspiring to?
The author uses these vivid nature images to contrast this human anxiety. They point to birds in a forest. What do the birds possess?
Nothing.
Absolutely nothing. But as the text points out, they lack nothing. They have the sunlight, the forest, the streams, the bugs, the branches to perch on.
They just use what's there. A bird doesn't build a fence around a specific tree and declare it, private property.
Right. And the text elevates this concept from birds to spiritual beings. Jesus possessed nothing in life, but now has everything. Buddha possessed nothing after enlightenment and has the Elysium world.
Yeah.
And the author specifically mentions entities they call the super-celestial beings in the Celestial Islands continent.
Okay, the Celestial Islands continent. We should definitely define that.
So in the cosmology of Lifechanyuan, the Celestial Islands continent is the highest, most supreme tier of existence. The beings who reside there, the super-celestial beings, are the ultimate example of this philosophy.
They own nothing at all.
They possess absolutely nothing, no personal property whatsoever, yet they have access to everything they could ever want or need.
Okay, so what is blocking us from living like these super celestial beings, or I don't know, even just the birds? We have the intelligence, so why are we so trapped in the anxiety of ownership?
The text places the blame squarely on privatization. The author argues that nature's gifts, the mountains, the rivers, the sun, the rain, were bestowed upon all mankind, but they've been hijacked by a small group of people who decided to just draw arbitrary lines.
They basically carved up the earth.
Exactly. The text uses the example of tourist attractions, which I found surprisingly relatable.
Yeah.
You go to see a beautiful mountain or a natural landscape, and suddenly you hit a gate. You have to buy a ticket to get in, or you're kept out. The author likens this to a gangster-ridden world. Yeah, they frame it as literal extortion. Someone stands in front of a mountain and says, I built this road, I planted this tree, pay my toll.
It's like someone trying to put a copyright on sunshine and then charging you a monthly subscription just to stand in the light.
The author channels that exact outrage. And they get highly specific with this argument when it comes to a resource we all use every single day, which is water.
The water argument in this text is fascinating because it tackles modern infrastructure head-on. How does the author handle that?
The text argues that water is a fundamental gift of nature to all life, right? Yet we're forced to pay for it. The common defense from society is that water needs to be purified and piped into our homes, which requires massive financial investment.
Right, because infrastructure isn't free. Someone have to lay the pipes and run the treatment plants.
But the author completely rejects the premise of how we pay for it. They argue that the people who polluted the water in the first place, so factories, corporations, they should be solely responsible for the entire cost of purifying it. Why should the general public bear the financial burden of someone else's pollution?
I mean, that makes a certain kind of logical sense. It's a very extreme version of like a carbon tax or a pollution penalty.
Right.
But what about the pipes themselves? Getting the clean water from the lake to my kitchen sink still requires physical labor and physical materials. I'm trying to picture how this works in their utopian system. Is it like a giant commune where everyone takes turns digging ditches?
It's somewhat close to that. The text proposes that bringing water into homes should be facilitated by voluntary labor organized by the government.
Okay.
As for the physical materials, the pipes, the pumps, those should simply be provided by the production factories without any cost attached.
Just provided.
Yeah.
For free.
Yeah.
It reminds me of the open source software movement like Linux, where developers volunteer their time to build an operating system for everyone to use freely.
That's a good parallel.
But with physical resources, if water is totally free and unlimited in my house, wouldn't people just leave their taps running all day?
The author actually anticipates that exact counter-argument. They acknowledge that wasting resources is a potential problem in a free access system. But then they flip the question back on the reader. Why would a human being want to waste water for absolutely no reason?
Well, how do they answer that?
The text categorizes the urge to waste as purely a mental and spiritual problem. They argue that charging money for water to control behavior just reinforces the anxiety of ownership.
So money is just a Band-Aid.
Exactly. Instead of using money as a leash, we should solve the underlying spiritual sickness that makes a person want to disrespect and waste nature's gifts in the first place.
To summarize the author's view up to this point, claiming this is my house or this is my company or this is my water, it inevitably leads to a dystopia where everything is carved up and monetized.
Yes.
And if we follow this trajectory, eventually, even the air we breathe will be taxed. So if that is the diagnosis, what is their actual solution? How do we break this cycle of privatization?
To fix this gangster-ridden world of anxiety, the text does not suggest minor economic reforms.
No tax credits.
Right. It doesn't suggest passing new tax laws or wealth redistribution programs. It proposes a complete, radical teardown of human society's foundational structures.
And if you're listening to this and thinking this sounds incredibly extreme, you aren't alone. We want to be clear that our mission today is to neutrally report and analyze the ideas presented in this text by Shufeng. We aren't endorsing this blueprint, nor are we condemning it. We're just exploring the mechanics of this philosophy so you can understand the author's ultimate logical conclusion.
And the architecture of this utopian vision is built on some very specific math provided by the author. The text argues that it's only when no one possesses anything that everyone will have everything.
Right.
And to achieve that mathematically, the very first step is the total elimination of traditional families.
Just completely dissolving the family unit.
The text explicitly claims that without traditional families, 80% of all social issues would be resolved instantly.
Let's unpack the logic behind that 80%.
Yeah.
Why is the family the primary target here? Is it because the family unit is like the ultimate driver of hoarding resources?
That is the exact mechanism the author points to. The traditional family creates a sort of micro-tribalism. It creates an us versus them dynamic.
Yeah, that makes sense.
If you have a family, your primary biological and social drive is to accumulate wealth, land, and resources to protect your specific children, often at the expense of other people's children. By dissolving the family, you destroy the primary engine of private accumulation.
You remove the motivation for greed because there is no my kid to inherit my house.
Exactly.
But the text doesn't stop at the micro level. What about the macro level?
The second step is that no one should possess a country. Nationalism and borders must be abolished entirely.
And the text provides a percentage for that too, right?
It does. The author calculates that without countries, 90% of our global problems would be resolved.
90%.
Yep. If you remove the concept of collective national ownership, you eliminate resource wars, border disputes, military budgets, and the massive inequality between nations.
So 80% of human problems are solved by ending families, and 90% are solved by ending countries. What about the remaining 10%?
The text states the remaining 10% are simply minor problems of spirit and soul construction, which can be easily managed once the massive structural barriers of family and nation are gone.
I mean, the scale of this is just staggering. The text starts with a personal spiritual principle from ancient prophets, Jesus and Buddha, saying, don't be greedy, and scales it up to bulldozing the concepts of nations and families.
It's a massive leap.
It begs the question, is the goal here to get to heaven in the afterlife, or to forcibly reconstruct a utopian heaven on earth?
The author would argue that the two are inextricably linked. You cannot have one without the other. The text openly acknowledges how impossible this sounds to modern ears, too.
Sure.
Because this is the mortal world, filled with anxiety and ownership, people will dismiss this blueprint as a delusion, a fantasy, or what the text calls an Arabian Nights myth.
But they claim they are actually doing it. This isn't just a philosophical thought experiment for the author.
Sure. No, it is actively being put into practice. The text introduces a real-world application called the New Oasis for Life, which was built by the organization Lifechanyuan.
For the people living in this community, how does the text describe their daily reality?
The individuals who enter this new oasis are referred to in the text as Chanyuan celestials. For them, this philosophy is a lived daily reality.
Wow.
The text claims that these Chanyuan celestials possess nothing, but because they share everything collectively, they lack nothing. To them, this isn't an unattainable dream. It is the only viable way to live a peaceful life on Earth and ultimately qualify for heaven.
They're proving the concept.
Right. The consciousness of possessing is viewed as the ultimate obstacle, and it must be eradicated in actual practice, not just in theory.
It's an incredible escalation of thought, taking spiritual detachment to its absolute literal limit. Let's look at the journey we just took through this source material. We started with the unified theories of ancient prophets.
Jesus, Buddha, Lao Tzu, Muhammad.
Right, all of them pointing out that material attachment is a trap. Then we moved into the mechanical physics of Taiji thinking, where gaining worldly wealth mathematically bankrupts your cosmic merit in the afterlife.
Yeah, and from there we explored the text's heavy critique of modern privatization, the psychological toll of chasing bubbles, and the idea that paying for water or buying tickets to see a mountain is essentially surrendering to an extortionist society.
And finally, we ended at the author's radically extreme architectural blueprint, abolishing traditional families to end micro-hoarding and abolishing nations to end macro wars, all practiced by the Chanyuan Celestials in the new Oasis for Life.
It is a sweeping, uncompromising vision of how humans relate to the material world and to each other.
It really is. And it leaves you with a lot to process. But I want to leave you, the listener, with a new angle to ponder on your own that builds on what we've explored today. The author of this text argues that voluntarily giving up ownership frees us from anxiety and connects us to the divine. But think about our modern, digitized world for a second.
The direction the global economy is naturally heading.
Yes, exactly. We are rapidly moving toward a society where we actually don't own things anymore. We don't own our movies. We don't own our music. We just stream them from the cloud.
Yep.
You don't even own the software that makes your car run or your tractor operate. You just rent it or subscribe to it.
The ultimate subscription economy.
Are we accidentally backing into a secular corporate version of possessing nothing?
Oh, that's a wild thought.
Right. And if so, will this modern lack of ownership bring the spiritual liberation and the lack of anxiety that the text promises? Or will it just trap us in a totally different modern kind of nightmare?
That is a profound parallel.
Because if you think back to the beginning of this deep dive, to those hundreds of cardboard boxes stacked to the ceiling on moving day, getting rid of the boxes might make the living room feel a lot bigger.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, who actually owns the room you're standing in? Until next time, keep diving deep.